All right, and there we are live on YouTube. Um, just wait a minute for it to come up because it'll come up on my screen and be loud. There we go. Unless I do that. Oh, I beat it. Yay. All right. So how is everybody tonight? Good evening, good evening, good evening.
Good, good evening. All is well.
All's well.
Yeah. Anybody have anything that you'd like to share this evening? Anything good going on? Good news or things that we want to talk about?
Where's Glorian?
Florian is on vacation.
Okay.
She's visiting her family in North Carolina.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so she'll be gone for a couple weeks, actually. She might be back next week, but places that she's staying, she may or may not have a signal. So they're going to Virginia Beach and just some different places. So
Oh, she
yeah,
deserves a break. She deserves a break.
she does, man. She's one of those go-getter people too, constantly doing something. Um, so yeah. See,
Karen has something planned, no?
yes, we have something planned. I just was asking if anybody had anything that they'd like to share.
I'll just mention again, we have a new Zoom session here on Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. It had been going on for a couple of years at Lori Coburn. She was hosting it, and this past week she decided that last Sunday night was her last one. It's been moved to 7 p.m. Sunday evening right here. Some of the people you already know, Karen is one of the people that sometimes comes. Michelle Murphy says that she definitely wants to come. You have Teresa, who teaches here on Mondays. She's part of it. A couple of people from Namaste Village in Mexico. One guy in particular, Jack. He's really he's one of the original founders of Namaste Village. And he really knows the course really well. I might say he kind of dominates the Sunday evening sessions, and that's kind of true. So there's only about 8 or 9 people in the original group, but we think that once it's here in Gather, starting this coming Sunday at 7 o'clock, I think the group can get up to 10, 12, 14 easily. And there's no facilitators. Usually the group evening starts off when Lori says, does anyone have a topic? And once she says that, whatever the next person says is what the topic is until they talk it out and they change the topic. For instance, last Sunday night, somebody said, well, let's do chapter 31, section 8, and they were about to read it. They read the first paragraph, and then Teresa said, why don't we do this section just before chapter 31, section 7 on salvation? And they did that, and then they went to 31. So it's a very freelance kind of thing, no rules.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, I love that. So that will be Karen and Dub will be facilitating that, I believe, on Sunday evenings. So
Okay.
no, not Karen.
Okay, now I will be there, but there's no facilitators really.
Well, somebody's got to open up the Zoom room and make sure everything works.
I'll definitely open up.
Somebody's got to do it. That's, I mean, you don't
think it's
me to be anything other than a facilitator, do you? I'm a facilitator. That's all I'm doing.
No, I will open up the room.
Okay.
I think Joni's going to get more involved than me because I can't always make it on Sundays. So I think Joni's more probably going to be there more with you, Dove.
Joni said that she's going to be available. That's right.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
that'll be interesting. That'll be good. Yeah, I like to see Joni more too. So
Lynn, are you going to be there? Are you going to come?
well, I may or may not. That's the thing that is so beautiful about it, and that's really what I have been hoping for, is that people will be taking some time and being able to use, because we pay, pretty good money to have this Zoom room, And I really would like to have it be used more often. And, but I can't be here all the time. So, yeah, I'll come in, but, that's, my evenings are, time I spend with my family. So I'm not so much, wanting to take away another evening from them. I already take all their days from them most of the time. So, I mean, and I'm not, that sounded really awful. I didn't realize I was even thinking that, but, I do feel guilty for spending as much time on Gather and not being with my family as much as I could be. So I suppose that's probably valid there. But I have to say they're pretty boring. So this is more interesting.
Well, I'm learning. Wait,
But
who's in your, isn't it like 2 in the afternoon? Like when it's 7 here? Wait, no, it's only
it's
2
5
hours.
o'clock. Yeah, it's 5
But
o'clock.
that's dinner time. Yeah, that's dinner
Yeah,
time.
it's dinner time. Yeah, and that's usually when I'm doing dinner and uh, Sandy works at the hospital at night. So
It's just you and your husband.
I'm getting her ready, bed and ready to go to work
Right.
time on Sunday evening. So, that's why even Monday evening when Amy was doing it was great because, Amy was doing it and I didn't have to be here and I could go ahead and fix supper and feed the family at that time. And, the reason I'm saying these things is not because I'm trying to make people feel guilty, is because I'm saying other people can do this too.
Yes,
And not just, I don't have to be, I'm not your mama. I don't have to be here all the time. If this room belongs to Gather. And, I intend it for anybody to be able to pick it up and use it, even
Right.
have personal meetings with each other. And I know sometimes people do have personal meetings with each other. So, it's as long as we, don't, you know, do anything stupid, which, I can't even imagine. I would really love to have more people being involved and more things going on. So, short answer, I probably will be here, but I'm don't want to be expected to be here.
Yeah.
So,
okay. I just want to say the Sunday meeting has been going on for a couple of years at least. I joined it about 2 years ago and it was already going on for a couple of years. So it's probably been going on for about 45 years. Laurie Coburn, who many of you, of course, know, she teaches here. She's here on Thursday with me and Sharon. She's been, I know Laurie for like 10 years. Laurie basically has been traveling recently and she feels that she doesn't want to be responsible for being here every Sunday night. So it was time for her to say, let somebody else do it. That's it. That's all.
yeah, I love it. All things must pass.
Mhm.
Right.
So that's
When I work on Sundays, but there-
You're- you-
you're breaking up, Mickey.
I have just a little minor surgery coming up, and I'm driving right now, so I
Oh.
might have bad reception. But there's a couple Sundays I'll be able to attend, but
Oh, okay.
I usually work on Sundays. But everything's going to be perfect. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and the right person, like Doug was saying, the right person, the right discussion will show up at that particular time. All needs are met, so it'll be perfect no matter what it is.
Yeah, thank you, Mickey. That you're right about that. And so it'll be great if you can be here a couple weeks. That'd be awesome. So anyway, good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? We had a little chat today earlier, and we're talking about our day lesson today, lesson 163. And I played a excerpt from a Ken Wapnick uh, 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 what workshop basically on death and dying. And so I told folks I would replay that tonight and we could all listen to what Ken has to say about the workbook, doing the workbook lessons and the concept of death and dying. And then we can read lesson 163, which is, of course, today's lesson. There is no death, the Son of God is free, and talk about what exactly is being said there. So I hope everybody enjoys this. Well, let's check it out. I'm going to go ahead and play the Ken
Are you
Watman.
putting it on for a half an hour, or are you gonna just put it on for?
It's only it's the same thing I played earlier.
I thought like, every week we could really dig into this tape and then discuss it. That would be good too.
Well, I think that's going to take forever. I mean, there are 19 sections of little individual recordings, and each one of them is between 2 and 15 minutes long. So
I wanted to make a point, actually. First of all, Joni's note taker is not there anymore, so we can celebrate. That's the
yes.
thing I was going to bring up. I was listening to Ken Wapnick earlier today. It wasn't on this particular session that he did. It was on a different session called "An Idea Cannot Leave Its Source." So that's a different workshop. But he happened to mention something that I thought was very interesting. The ego considers death meaning the death of the body, or a person is gone and you don't see them anymore. He said, no. Death is anything like sadness, and I was thinking today, so like when my wife passed away, there was sadness over here for a long time, and there's still sadness. So even though it seemed to be only one person who passed away, died, dead, a little of me went with it. So death has not only to do with the dropping of the body, it has to do with losing your spiritual life, you might say, which is who we are.
So let's take a look at today's lesson, because let's do that first, in fact, because just as you say, it says something entirely different about death than what we think about death. So let's do that. Do you want to read the first paragraph of the lesson, Dove? Okay, great.
There is no death. The Son of God is free. Lesson 163. Death is a thought that takes on many forms, which is exactly what Ken was saying about early today, often unrecognized. Of course, we recognize the death of the body. We don't recognize the other forms. It may appear as, oh, I didn't even know who's in.
That's why I was saying it. This is just what you were just saying.
Paragraph. I actually heard him talking about it in a different workshop, but that's okay.
It's a day of coincidences today.
Fear is fear, sadness, fear, anxiety, doubt as anger, faithlessness, and a lack of trust. I would say with the lack of trust, this is a dead planet. Concern for bodies, envy, and all forms in which the wish to be as you are may not come to tempt you. To be as you are may not come to tempt you. Let me read that
As
again.
you are not.
In all forms in which you wish to be as you are not may come to tempt you. I say, okay, all such thoughts are but reflections of the worshiping of death as savior and as a giver of release. All such thoughts are but reflections of the worshiping of death as savior. So what this is really saying to me, outside of the first part, which is obvious, comes in many forms. So you might say, if you experience any of these forms during the day, that's really what Jesus is talking about as death. You don't have to leave your body to die. But looking at that last sentence, all such thoughts are but reflections of the worshiping of death. So, in a way, and I hear people talking about this almost all the time. He says, I hate my life. I wish things were different. Oh, well, I guess when I die, they'll be different. So we think that death kind of saves us from the agony and the pain and the suffering, and that is not true. That is not true. If you have an idea that at the point of leaving your body, you are miraculously all of a sudden enlightened, not true. So I'm complete on the first paragraph.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so anytime I wish that something was different than it is, that is wishing for death.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of that. I wish I could lose some weight, and I wish I was in better shape, and I wish I I wish there's so many. Every time I just those two just came to my mind. But anytime I wish I was faster, I wish I was smarter, I wish I knew more about computers. Anytime I want something to be different than it is, or I wish that the government was different, or I wish the world was different, or I'd like, anytime I wish for things to be different, it's a wish for death. It's thinking that death is going to save me by changing what a thing is into something else. Rafi, please go ahead.
Yeah, all of those. Every time you said the word wish, you could have inserted the word want, and it would work the same way. Of course, wishing, wanting is the cause of all suffering. You want to be different, so you're not in any state of peace or acceptance as things are, and only an ego concept, ego mind concept wants, and of course it can't be never satisfied. You can't be satisfied in this whatever the dream has, and that is so. There's with the death means I can be finally free of all of this stuff, as Doug clearly pointed out. That's not true. And the other aspect is the ego's horrifying fear of death. I'm going to lose, I'm going to die in my body. I was born, I'm going to live for a while, then I'm going to die. Oh, no, my God, I'm going to die. Ah! And the other part is we work with it in the release technique and the Sedona method all the time, because the mind is always about attachments and aversions. It wants and doesn't want the same thing at the same time. And if that isn't a formula or a recipe for suffering, I don't know what is. And so what we do is we get a hold of the fear of dying and bring it up in the form of, it's usually wanting safety and security, survival, and just let the feeling go, because it's just a feeling. And the more you let the feeling go, the more the mind quiets. The same thing with the I want to die, the aversion to living, or the attachment to dying, as it's going to be some kind of salvation. You bring up that's the fear of separation or the want for separation, and bring that up and let that go. And the more you let those, and again, just feelings, and we're not that ego mind anyway. But the more you clear that stuff out, the more quieter I get, and the more in touch with the infinite truth of what we are, the God consciousness that we are. The more that's the more that's the reality. So again, the fear of death and the wanting to die are excellent tools for getting closer and closer to realization, salvation, however you want to terminate that transcendence, whatever term you use for transcendence.
Karen, go ahead.
Sorry, I was muted. Karen, yeah, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Rafi. Thank you, Dov. Thank you, Lynn. I love what everyone's sharing, and the wish that something could be different is the wish for death. I love that. And I love what Dove said about, you know, I hate my life. I wish things were different. And I think if I die, things are going to, it's going to be better, you know, on the other side. And I think that's exactly what my husband thought before he committed suicide. He said, I want to see the other side. Because he felt like his life was over here. There was nothing left for him here. And we take our consciousness with us. That's what the Course is teaching us. Death is a thought. And I like to correlate this lesson with lesson 167. There is one life, and that I share with God. And in paragraph 4, he says, death is the thought that you are separate from your creator. So being separate from your creator is this paragraph 1 we're reading in 163, is all these many forms that appear as sadness, fear, anxiety, doubt, anger, faithlessness, lack of trust, concern for bodies, envy, and all forms in which the wish to be as you are not is the thought that I'm separate from my creator. It is the belief conditions change, emotions alternate because of causes you cannot control, you did not make, and you can never change. It is the fixed belief ideas can leave their source and take on qualities the source does not contain, become indifferent from their own origin, apart from it in kind. So this is just reminding me that, you know, first of all, I can change my mind. I can't change the conditions, but this belief, you know, that, oh, if things were different, you know, I would be happier if, you know, this wish for a better body, a better car, a better anything is the wish for death. And I can change my mind. I can be at peace regardless of what's going on. And that has been my practice lately. And I just love that practice. So this is a great topic, and I'm very happy to be here. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Karen. Yes. And that's, you know, I mean, honestly, it's so simple. You know, how many times does Jesus tell us in the Course, let things be what they are, you know, don't try to change the world. Don't try to change. But I mean, all we can think about is how to change it. Like we know somehow how it could be better. And you know, the fact is I mean, that's big thunder out here. That's our problem. You know, this is why we're here, because somehow we thought we could make something better than heaven. I mean, seriously, this is why we keep looking for things here and hoping for things here and trying to fix things here, because we think we're trying to make something better than heaven. And there's nothing better than heaven. There's nothing better than reality. And anything that we try is literally it's death, because it will not last. It can't succeed. And no matter what we do, we can never make a world that is eternal and changeless. Because that's what we want. We want change. So any other thoughts on paragraph 1 here? Yeah, Karen.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. I mean, it's not just for me, it's not just my wish that things would be different. For me, it's my wish that other people would change. You know, like just for example, tonight I was over my uncle's, and we both have those Brita water filters. And so he said, are we ready to change the water filters yet? And I said, well, taste it. And that's how we know, you know, taste it. I usually keep track. I said, well, just taste it. So he wanted to pour me a glass of water in this one cup he uses. And I said, I'm not drinking out of that cup. And he's like, he said that I insulted him. I said, he never uses soap. And there's mold. It's a plastic cup. And I said, there's mold. And I showed him the mold. I took a Q-tip and showed him the mold. And it was so, I caught myself trying to change him. trying to change the way he drinks his water or does whatever he does. I mean, he said, I insulted, he said, you insulted me. I said, I apologize. I didn't mean to insult you. I said, but I'm just trying to show you that, a little soap is not going to hurt you and it will get rid of the mold. And it's not good to drink that like that, And so we have a Brita water filter to get rid of all the impurities and you're drinking out of a cup that has mold in it. So, I don't know. And then can I just accept that that's the way he wants to be? And that makes that he doesn't care about it. It doesn't matter to him. So that's another thing for me to recognize when I think I can change somebody or want to change somebody, and just accept them as they are. That's all.
Well, and you know what that wanting to change somebody is? Murder. It's a form of death. And it's a form of, I want you to be somebody other than who you are. It's the same thing. And, I used to always talk about my murderous thoughts and people would joke about, oh, Lynn, you and your murderous thoughts. Well, no, just think about it. Anytime you want to see somebody change, you don't like the way they are, that you want something different. And, you make me laugh because I do that with my partner, both my partners all the time. I'm always wishing that they would change and do something different. And, Sandy, for one, just drives me crazy because she'll come home and she'll turn on the water and she'll leave the water running and she'll go and do other things and the water's running. I'm like, water, no, don't waste the water. I get all cranky about the water and I'm like, what the hell do I care? I mean, what difference does it? This is either this world is real and that water is precious, or this world is a dream and that water is a symbol of something to me that I think is more important than her. That's more important than her love. And once I started looking at it like that, I think that, I'm just thinking, how I think about things, what I think is right is more important than the being that is right in front of me that is um a symbol of love. So I'm literally thinking that, my running tap water is more important than her love. And that's, when Jesus says, if a brother asks you something outrageous, do it for him because he believes that that is his salvation. And it may not be that she believes that running the water, without, using it right at that moment is her salvation, but it's a form of safety to her or something she appreciates. And I'm just a nut for getting more excited about that than being happy that she's running the water and probably keeping the drain clear so we don't have to be clearing out the drain all the time. I don't know what anything's for. So anyway, that's enough my rant. Mickey, please go ahead.
Okay, well, I hope y'all can hear me because I'm driving, but I see two things. One, I related to Karen on the glass having the mold in it and the Brita filter because I wouldn't want to give my patients a glass of water to take their medicine. I would mention in a very loving way and non-judgmental way that, hey, I see some mold in this glass, is it okay if I clean this out for you or is it okay to give you this with this in this glass? The second thing is that I know that your uncle, you said, has been on the street. So, he might have just been happy to get a cup sometimes that he could drink out of. And I relate that to my grandfather, who was a prisoner of war for 6 years. And I remember I was working as a flight attendant and I came back and he had my coffee that I had brewed. He had it saved in the refrigerator for me. And I was gone on a 4-day trip and he wanted me to drink it. And I was very young, in my 20s, early, and a non-course student, of course. And I was like, I'm not drinking coffee unless it's fresh brewed, right? Well, he told me in the prison camp, you would have been happy to get a cup of coffee. That's what he told me. So, I see two things, and I would say that the best thing to do is to meet somebody where they're at. It's not the form, that is important in the mold in the glass. It's the content of, you know, the most loving thing to do. But sometimes it, you know, it might be a good thing to point it out, but to point it out in a loving way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mickey. That's beautiful. Where was your grandfather a prisoner of war? Or in what war? You're muted.
My grandfather was a German Navy SEAL, and he was captured in France, and he was put in a prison camp for 6 years in France. Yeah.
Wow. Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, we've just been seeing a lot about that particular time of our history and the things that occurred. You know, very interesting. Karen, please go ahead.
Thank you, McKaylee. Thank you so much. And, you know, very, very interesting. My uncle was homeless for 10 years. And I do mention to him sometimes, and I'll say to him, you know, you're not homeless anymore. You don't have to live like that anymore, you know, and it is very difficult because he still has those beliefs, just like your partner, Lynn, with the water. There's a belief she has about that water, and there is a belief that he still holds, that he still thinks that there's certain things he still has to do, or it's not enough. You know, there's never going to be enough, and I have to save this. And so I'm not going to waste the soap. I'm not going to waste this. I'm not going to, you know, I'm going to wear the same socks for a week before I put them in the hamper. I mean, so many things. And so it really is about just meeting them where they are, coming from a place of love. And you know, it's definitely something. It's a great classroom. It's a great classroom, and I'm very grateful for the input here, and just I'm grateful for the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Dove, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just added something in the chat, which I always keep this in mind. There's this one line in chapter 23, the war I wage against myself. It says, "There is no life outside of heaven." So that's another way of looking at there's no life here. I mean, talking about all the different forms of death, which we just read about in the first paragraph. He's telling you, wait a minute, there's no life here. There's no life that exists outside of heaven. And you can read the rest of this. It kind of makes you step back and kind of smile and laugh a little. It says, where God created life, their life must be. In any state apart from heaven, life is illusion. At best, it seems like life, at worst, like death. Yet both are judgments on what is not life, equal in their inaccuracy and lack of meaning. And then it goes on, life not in heaven is impossible, and what is not in heaven is not anywhere. You know, that's a great paragraph. Kind of sobers the mind up very quickly.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Dove. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else have anything on this before we move on? I want to give, let's see, let me look and see how long this excerpt from the Ken thing is. It's 12 minutes. So let's see. So at 48, at 48, we'll stop and listen to that. I'm looking at 48 according to the clock here. So somebody want to read paragraph 2?
I can read it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rafi.
Embodiment of fear, the host of sin, God of the guilty and the Lord of all illusions and deceptions, does the thought of death seem mighty? For it seems to hold all living things within its withered hand, all hopes and wishes in its blighting grasp, all goals perceive, but in its sightless eyes. The frail, the helpless, and the sick bow down before its image, thinking it alone is real, inevitable, worthy of their trust. for it alone will surely come. Yeah, well, uh,
That's the only thing that's guaranteed, isn't it? Death and taxes.
and none of it's true. It's all the illusion. It's all the dream. It's all the Maya. This, oh gosh. And we build we build everything around that. God, I have this life and it's coming to an end shortly. Oh no, I didn't get to do this, and I gotta get it. I'm gonna. And not a word of it is true. It's just concepts and beliefs and stories and programs and stuff that runs through something we call the mind that a lot of people identify with as themselves. And I'm glad I don't anymore.
Exactly. That's what I kicked the bucket. I don't have a bucket list. There's every time I think, oh, someday I'd like to do this or I'd like to do that, I'm like, I don't have any aspirations. Every time I think I have aspirations for a future, I realize that it's just foolishness to think about it, because it's dissatisfaction with what's now and wanting something more.
It's perfectly okay to have all kinds of stuff. It's so perfectly okay to be a multimillionaire or not, as long as you realize it's more or less entertainment going on in a dream. What really counts is how much of the negativity thinking and feeling have you let go of, that all of that stuff showed up. But if the truth is, like Jesus said, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven within, and all these things will be given to you. That's fine. Then you can play with them or not play with them. You're infinite. You can do anything you want. You can do anything you decide. But the first things first, okay? Get to the truth of remembering what I am. Then all of that stuff is fine. You can play with it or not. Help other, that's great.
Yeah, it'll come to you or not. So that's the beauty of it. John Sunday.
Hi, everybody. Enjoying the conversation today. And I got a question here because it says here, the frail, the helpless, and the sick bow down before his image, thinking it alone is real, inevitable, worthy of their trust. So it's saying it's using the trust word, and I know Dove, that's big in Dove's world. So, and it should be in all of us, eh? But what my question and consideration here that came up today at another meeting with a coach of mine, because I'm asking him about the quality of trust, and he said to me, if you're living your values, there's trust there, and but it's not actually a quality in itself. So basically, what I'm seeing here is this, like worthy of their trust. Would trust in the ego? What am I trust? Where is my trust? And how do I define it? So, this is quite a big deal. And if there's anyone, he told me the thing to work on closer is connections as a word. It's kind of synonymous with trust. Connections, connecting, because it's a kind of slippery word in terms of trust in self. Well, who is this self that I got all this trust? What about all these ambiguous qualities that I'm working with and my life between the ego and spirit here? So anyway, I just put that out there. Trusting, what does that mean, basically? And so it's just the question came up when I read that there. So, and I'm not.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, what I was going to say is, that that's what I think he's saying here is that the only thing we can trust is that we will die. Death will be here. You can trust that everything in this world is going to go to hell, and there is not going to be any salvation for anything here. That you can absolutely trust. And because can you trust that things are going to get better? You can hope things are going to get better, but inevitably you will die. And that's something that you can't distrust. Anyway, go ahead, Dove.
Well, I just want to say one thing. Like, if you're going to trust in death, you're going to really have to ask yourself, what is death? Because I'm dying. Because if if you come right down to it, the only thing that's inevitable is change, and there's an energy cannot be destroyed nor created. So it's only the only thing that can do is be changed. There's no death. It's transmuted. It gets changed. So you can't say that there's death because it doesn't exist. Sure, the body ceases to express, but that's not who we are.
No, but that's not, what he's saying is that's what the ego counts on. He's not saying that that's what we should count on. He's saying this is what the ego counts on, is that the guilty will be punished, that death will come inevitably. So he's not saying that we should trust that death is going to come. He's saying that's what we do trust.
Well, that's not true.
Well, it may not be true for you, but definitely is true for me. I do absolutely, I get next to somebody who's got COVID and I think I'm going to get COVID. I drive down the street on a rainy day and, I'm going to think, I might get hit by lightning. I trust that something bad is going to happen because it inevitably it does. Anyway, those are just my thoughts. Dove and then Rafi, go ahead, Dove. I'll be right back.
I think it's helpful, instead of looking at the word trust, is to look at what trust is. Trust is when you have no fear and you are perfectly safe. And this course tells you that to develop trust, tells you this in section 4 of the manual, can take a very long time. And I've been saying for a very long time, you can learn anything in this book if you have any kind of intellect. But the one thing you cannot get from A Course in Miracles is trust. Trust takes your willingness to really, and as Rafi will always tell you, to completely let go of your belief system. Can you let go a little bit more? Can you let go a little bit more? Yeah. When you finally can let go of all your belief systems, you can finally feel that nothing is governing you or ruling you. In trust, in section 4, in paragraph 1, in the manual, it says God's teachers have trust in the world because they have recognized it's not governed by the laws of chaos, the laws of the ego, the laws of the world. It's governed by a power that is in us and not of us. And that goes right with what Rafi said here earlier. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven within. So if you're trusting anything outside of you, you can't trust, because that's the ego's projection on your own guilt. And if you're looking outside, everything seems to be separate. The bodies are separate. I don't know this guy, and I want to stay away from him. I hear he's a gangster. All those things come up in our judgmental mind. So the way to let go of distrust or fear is to recognize lesson 47 and 48 are the two lessons that speak directly to this. God is the strength in which I trust, and his strength is our strength. And then the very next lesson, 48, literally says, there is nothing to fear. This is a fact. And then he says, well, it's not a fact if you're still invested in illusions. And of course, we're all invested in being a body, separate and different and apart. So as long as you see yourself as a body, you're going to live in fear. And that's exactly what Helen said to, I think it's on page 28 of the textbook. Jesus said, I can't take away your fear, Helen, but I can tell you the conditions that bring the fear about. It's always your belief in separation. So the belief in separation or different bodies, different people, different this, is the belief in I can't trust because what's different from me. How can I trust what's different from me? They may hurt me. They may kill me. I can't trust. Well, if you can't trust, you still live in fear, period. So there's only two emotions. One is love, which is from God's love, and we are love. and one is fear. And fear is when you believe in separation rather than in oneness. I think that kind of completes it for me. Rafi,
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
okay. Rafi, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think you covered that subject beautifully. There's a couple of things that jumped out at me. First was what Lynn was saying when she said, well, I'm driving down the street and I think this is going to happen, or I'm doing this and I think this is going to happen, and I think this is going to happen. She's listening to thoughts that come from a mind that isn't what we are, and thinking that she's actually thinking those things when those things happen spontaneously, and that she has to listen to it. And then all of that thinking up there is all about fear once again, which is only a feeling. And so if you get caught up in that, you're stuck with it, and you're stuck with thinking, and thinking is thinking, and you're caught in this dream world, and I got to save myself. I mean, it's dangerous. I got to save myself. I got to get things out of it, and I got to save myself from it at the same time. Well, neither of those two things are real. The other thing is about when if we let go of all of the fears, again, they're just feelings, they're not facts, that the mind quiets and we can again be in harmony with the truth of what we really are. The other thing is about stuff, and the stuff is fine if you see the going for the stuff as the lesson you need to learn to get rid of stuff that caused you to get rid of the stuff that brought up the fear in the first place. And that stuff that brought up the fear in the first place is, I'm a separate person. I'm going to live. I was born. I'm going to live for a while and I'm going to die. Again, none of that stuff is true. None of it. So you can think this is going to happen, and you can think that's going to happen, and you're going to think that's going to happen, but it's still thinking, and it's all happening in the dream. It's all happening in the illusion. And there's no, and there are, if you use it as a tool to get rid of it and clear your mind out, and quiet your mind out, and get in touch with the truth of your great. If you're not, if you're using it the way ego and pushes it out there to you, then you're going to get stuck in that turmoil and you're constantly suffering. And, that's a decision that you have to make. If you can look back and discriminate, stand back and discriminate and say, nah, that stuff is all coming from my mind. It has got nothing to do with me. And if these feelings showed up, good. They came up to leave, let them go. The simpler we make it, the better off we are, because ego loves to complicate. Anyhow, I guess I've gone on too long, and you want to run that thing, please.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Rafi. That was great. And you brought up the word discriminate. I use the word discernment. Your ability to discern between your ego's thought system and the thoughts that you hold with oneness of God, that will make all the difference. Because the ego always sees differences. Me, you, us, them, good, bad, right, wrong. Go ahead, Karen. Karen.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I just love everything that everyone shared. And I'm going to go back to what John Sunday said, when he said that we don't die, it's just energy changing. And today I was like missing my dad, and I was feeling that sadness that Dove was talking about, and I was really missing him, and I was really getting sad. And but then I remembered that, he didn't die. His physical form passed away, but his energy was still there. And I was feeling his energy. I felt his energy, and I feel his energy a lot. So I love that, John, you said that, because it's so true. That energy just changes, and they're still here, that they don't leave. Towards the end of his life, he was in a very toxic relationship, and he had a cane, and he slammed the cane down 3 times, and he said, I'm done. And and he spelled done, and he spelled it wrong. He said DUNE. So that's like a an ongoing joke with my family. We make fun of it, like, I'm done, D-U-N-E, and we make fun of it because it's funny. But I was in the elevator with my uncle, and I was slamming my cane down, and I felt the energy of my dad, and it just came out of me. And it was like my dad was like right there. We just started laughing, and he was there. So I just love to remember that, because there is no death. There is no death. The energy is always there. So thank you for that.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you, everyone. Wow, what wonderful sharing. And I do appreciate so much, that, we're willing to look at this and talk about this. I am going to play that thing from Ken. He's talking about the introduction of the workbook. And the introduction of the workbook it says some pretty astonishing stuff. Basically saying you don't even have to believe in God, you don't have to believe in the workbook, you don't have to believe in anything, just do the lessons. And I love that this thing I'm going to play is Ken really explaining to us about why let's see here, advance, there we go, why doing the lessons is a way of well, he's going to talk about it in terms of death. So you just have to listen, and I won't go any farther because it's going to take us a little over our time anyway. And I don't care if we go over a little over time anyways. So here we go. And hopefully you'll hear Ken Wapnick here.
I mentioned this before, but why not I read it to you?
You hear?
Because where I'm leading with this is death. All right? There's a method in my madness. All right? This is the introduction to the workbook, right at the beginning, page 1, paragraph 4. Now, this is in the context of the workbook, but think of it in the larger context of your pathway home, your life, your physical daily life. Paragraph 4. The purpose of the workbook is to train your mind in a systematic way to a different perception of everyone and everything in the world. Animate or inanimate, significant or insignificant, world shaking, catastrophic, or a little skirmish in a schoolyard. The purpose of the workbook is to train your mind in a systematic way to a different perception of everyone and everything in the world. The exercises are planned. Or now this is our daily life now is planned by us. The exercises are planned by the author. All right? But our life is planned by us. It's our script. The exercises are planned to help you generalize the lessons so that you will understand that each of them is equally applicable to everyone and everything you see. All right, so in a very short paragraph, you have two everyones, two everythings, and equally. Right? No exceptions. Right? Transfer of training in true perception, which is another way of talking about generalization. Transfer of training in true perception does not proceed as does transfer of training of the world. If true perception has been achieved in connection with any person, situation, or event, like the little boy who bumps into you, total transfer to everyone and everything is certain. If you truly forgive one person, which means there is no spot of darkness in you, then that forgiveness must extend to everyone and everything because projection makes perception. What I perceive and have made real in my mind, namely the teachings of forgiveness, and I've identified with them totally, everyone and everything has to be seen through the eyes of forgiveness because projection makes perception, and there's no one out there. On the other hand, one exception held apart from true perception makes its accomplishments anywhere impossible. So I could be loving to my spouse, to my children, to my partners, to my lovers, to my colleagues, to my bosses, to everybody in the television news. I can be loving to everybody, but let that kid bump into me, I will crucify him. Or let that waitress make a mistake in my order, and boy, will I let her have it. I have just invalidated everything. There is no way I could love all the other people I just mentioned and be angry at the waiter or the waitress or the little boy. That's what this is saying. And this is right at the beginning of the workbook, so nobody knows nothing about nothing at this point about the course. All right? That's also Brooklyn. All right? So you don't realize that what you're really being trained to do is to think as a mind and not a body. Because this makes no sense to a body. Why can't I be angry at the little boy and not at anybody else? I mean, what difference does it make? Little kid deserved it. Little kids always deserve it. They're selfish, self-centered, But as a mind, it's impossible. If I want my mind to be healed, there can't be any spot of darkness. And if there's a spot of darkness, somebody's going to get it in the world. Of course, what's in the mind must be projected out. So this is very subtle training for us to begin thinking as a mind, even though we don't even know we're doing it. The only general rules to be observed throughout, then, are first, that the exercises be practiced with great specificity, as will be indicated. All right, so you don't exempt anything or anyone from your perception. This will help you to generalize the ideas involved to every situation in which you find yourself and everyone and everything in it. Second, be sure that you do not decide for yourself that there are some people, situations, or things to which the ideas are inapplicable. This will interfere with transfer of training. The very nature of true perception is that it has no limits. It is the opposite of the way you see now. The overall aim of the exercises is to increase your ability to extend the ideas you'll be practicing to include what? Everything. Right? I'll just stop with that, all right? You couldn't ask for something clearer, right? This is very easy English. Fourth grader could read this. Everyone, everything, everyone, everything, everyone, everything. No exception. And if you practice with the little child bumping into you, or the waiter or waitress not giving you the service you demand, and you really practice with all of these things, you are preparing to die with the peace of God in your mind. And if you really know that, and it is literally true, if you want to die peacefully and know that nothing is happening, and that love and that light and that peace that you are now learning to live with, seemingly in a body, will be there while you die, after you die, nothing has happened, then practice. Practice every single moment with everyone and everything. And if you don't do that, it's because you're ambivalent about the goal. And that does not make you a bad person. Makes you very silly, though. Why would you not want to be in that resplendent light? Why would you not want to feel this love of Jesus burning in your heart so that nothing and no one would ever interfere with that again? Why would you not want that? Anyone who's had that experience or something similar knows what that is like. Why would you throw that away for a little crumb of specialness? A little excitement in triumphing over a little kid or a service employee, or your dog, right? Or a member of your family. That's what this whole course is about. It's trying to help us realize that we always have a choice and to recognize what we are choosing and how painful it is, how very painful it is when we choose the ego. Incredibly painful because we're turning away from this love. Why do you have to wait for dead, to be dead, to have an after-death experience, a life after death? Why can't you have an experience while you're so-called living? There are people who would read some of the life after death or life after life experiences in the books. They're very, very moving, the stories. And they say, I can't wait till I die. Then I'll see Jesus and I'll have this wonderful light. I'd be crazy to think that way. And you are crazy. You're psychotic like everyone because you think the body is real. You're hallucinating. That experience is in your mind. It's not in form. You experience it in form because you think you're form, but it is not form. You could have that wonderful, resplendent light right now. Just let go of the darkness in your mind. And you let it go by choosing against it, but you have to want to. Motivation is the key here. You know, any teacher knows if you want your students to learn, you have to motivate them. You know, I mentioned this before, the worst patients any therapist could have are those patients that are mandated to be seen by the court or by the school or by an angry spouse. If you don't see so-and-so, I'm going to divorce you. They're the worst patients you have because they don't want to be there. You want somebody in your office who wants to be helped. As a teacher, you want somebody in your classroom who wants to learn. And Jesus wants us to want to learn from him. And so he's motivating us, saying you have no idea of what you're losing. You have no idea what you're giving up. That's why there are those awful passages, and I'll allude to them very briefly today, but I'm not even read them, all right? Those awful passages, one of which I think I might have read to you yesterday morning. All right, those awful passages are there to show us that's what our world is like. That's why they're there. So we see, my God, this is what my life is like. But I could choose something differently. I could choose something different. I don't have to live this way. That's what you have to feel inside of you. He's pleading with us. Please listen to me. I'm not your enemy. I'm not a dream that comes in mockery. I'm not demanding that you live a life of sacrifice. I'm not asking you to believe in anything I say. Just like he says in the workbook, just do what I say. That's what he says at the end of the workbook introduction. I didn't read it to you. You know, some of these ideas you may not like, some you may actively resist, just do them. So just look at how much better you feel, really better, when you don't yell at the little child who bumps into you. You know, I grew up in New York City, and I spent a good part of my life riding the subways. And a lot of that time was spent riding very crowded subways. Right? Invariably, as the trains would kind of wobble through and everything, someone would fall on you or trip on you or kick you or something. Right? Right? If the person who did it said, "Oh, I'm so sorry," then you're not angry. But if the person says to you, watch where you're going, you get angry, which means your response was not contingent upon your mind's decision. Your response was contingent upon someone external. That's what you want to learn to avoid. You should be kind to anyone, whether they deliberately stepped on your foot or they didn't. Even if they're having an ego attack, why should you not love them? My God, you were born having an ego attack. Everybody you meet is fighting the same hard battle. Be compassionate to people's pain, without exception. That's what speeds us along. That's what leads to resurrection. That's what leads going through a death experience, whether it's your own or a loved one, and you don't even blink an eye. Even as your physical eyes may close, you're not even blinking because nothing is happening. You know that love is with you. You know that light is with you. But that just won't happen if you don't practice. Practice with the little things. We need to see a little so we learn a lot. Teacher of God, your one assignment could be stated thus: accept no compromise in which duality plays a part, in which anger plays a part, in which justified anger plays a part, in which death plays a part. Accept no compromise in which that happens. Don't tolerate it in yourself. And if you find yourself getting angry, don't justify it. Recognize you just became afraid of love. That's not a sin. We all did, otherwise we wouldn't be here. There wouldn't be a world if we weren't afraid of love. That's what's so important. It's the practice.
Right. So that's the end of that recording. Thank you for letting me play it. Did anybody hear anything that they resonated with or or that gave him a thought.
Everything, everything. So beautiful.
Thank you, John. Yeah. That's it.
Incredibly concise.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, I mean, I love when he said, you know, if a person's having a bad day, don't make it worse. I mean, he didn't say exactly like that, but that's really what he's saying. Everybody's fighting the same hard battle. Myrna, please.
Yes, what I got from this, which I know, but this sort of drove the thought home that it's how we react that is really is really what the death is. We do react. I know before the Course in Miracles in my early days, I mean, I was a very big reactor. Okay, wow. If I felt insulted or felt that somebody deserved to be, to have a piece of my mind, so to speak. I've come a long way. I don't react anymore the way, and the ego wants to react. And I think that's the whole big thing. Just don't react. Don't react. And then it goes away. Even if you feel, slighted. I know that Susan Michelle uses the term triggered a lot. And I find that, I was triggered the other day by someone. It's not really important, a friend. Uh, and and then I thought about it, and I didn't react, said nothing about it. Um, and then it really went away. It really did. I thought to myself, you want to know something? It's okay. It really is. I don't care if she's, wants to change the plans to something else, that we have these plans. It's not important. Let her change the plans if she wants to. And I realized that if you don't react, then the triggers do tend to soften. So that's what I got from Ken. He said, that's what he was stressing a lot of. So that's a very big thing in this world.
Thank you, Myrna.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful sharing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Dove, please go ahead.
Believe it or not, I picked up on the same thing that Myrna did. He said something to the effect. He says, if you bump into somebody, no, if someone bumps into you and say, "Oops, I'm sorry," you take that as, okay, the guy made a mistake and he's sorry, and you don't react. But if you say, "Hey, watch where you're going," that's a whole different reaction. Oh, in other words, I'm responsible for you bumping into me, really? And so what I'm noticing myself, I mean, obviously I was brought up in a neighborhood where I had to say, "Oh, I'm sorry." I wasn't looking where I was going. So I learned that's the way to really be if you want peace, But if you're into making others guilty, hey, watch where you're going, buddy. And so that word react, do not react. If you're reacting, you're listening to the ego saying, fight back.
Thank you, Dove. Yeah, exactly. I love that. And yeah, I mean, you have to think. It's a mind thing. You have to realize that, what you think is happening may not be what's happening at all. And I won't go into the story of when I got arrested, but the girl that was in the cell with me.
Bonnie and Clyde, like Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah, yeah.
No. With a rifle holding up a bank.
That was me, all right. No, I forgot to pay a ticket, and I got a warrant, and I was so I turned myself in, and they had to put me in. They arrested me. They put me in handcuffs and took me to jail, and got a mug shot and everything. So yep. And
That's it. That's all.
Yeah. Well, I had to go sit in a cell. I had to be in a cell until they bailed me out, and Rick and Sandy had to go bail me out. So it was an adventure. But since I already started telling the story, when I first went in there, in the cell, there was another girl in there and she was sleeping on, there was like a little bench and she was sleeping on the bench, the only bench that was in there. So I like had to sit on the floor and, she was young girl, African American, so in my arrogant, thinking, I'm like, oh, she probably got in trouble. She's some kind of a thug and blah, blah. I had this whole idea in my mind. And so, after I'd been in there for a little while, she kind of woke up and turned over and I looked at her and then I saw that she had just been crying her eyes out. I mean, she was just like so upset. And after I started talking to her, of course, and after I started talking to her, it was something that happened. Her and her boyfriend got in a fight. The police came, they arrested her. She's a college student. She couldn't call her mom because her mom's a police officer in DC and she didn't want her mom to know that she was arrested. And, it was just a terrible thing. And I sat there with her and for the hours, I was in there for several hours with her, sat there and we talked and I convinced her to call her mom. And it was like a whole thing. And even when they finally came and bailed me out, and we got up, and I was hugging her, and the jailer, the officer, was like, "Wow, you guys really bonded in here. I can't believe it." But the point being that I went in with an idea in my head about what kind of a person she was because she was in jail and all this, and it really I was just such an ass to even think that, because when I recognized that she was just having a really hard time, I just it broke my heart really that I had been so cold hearted about it. But anyway, that's my story. But that's it. You just gotta recognize everybody's having a difficult time. No matter how they appear. It's not up to me to be their judge and jury. Sharon, please go ahead.
I just was thinking that, could you picture Lynn in jail? You know, we made such a movie up, this movie, like putting us in jail. Every part of the movie is, I am bad. Like, shame is I think the guiltiest thought we have. Like, because along that goes like abandonment and all of that. But when we really look at it, it's a thought. Just like when he was talking about the little boy that bumped into him. That's a thought in my mind, right? Because none of this is doing anything except, this is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Now, I would like the tape. I would love the teaching. Dub, do you have this teaching that Lynn's played? Because I would love to have it. If you have it.
I have it. I'll send it to you.
Will you? Because
Yeah.
I was listening to Ken today on a walk. Honest to God, by the time I got to the park, I said, no, I'm not even there, because, it's going deeper. It's just going deeper. Like, it was like, this is so cool. There's nothing here. Ken wipes the whole dream out. He's like, that's it. You're not. And when you were saying that, you had to be nice to that girl, or your thoughts, you didn't even think those thoughts. Those thoughts are man-made thoughts. They're not God's thoughts.
Yeah.
And we keep saying there are thoughts, but they're not our thoughts. And, that's where, what does it have to do with me comes in, because there's no me. And then the teaching I was listening to with Ken today, he was saying, it's never about, if you want to go far with this course, it's never about you. There's no me. So you want the other to be, in other words, like, how we always think, well, nobody talked to me and nobody likes me. And it's not about that. It's always about the other, because that's who we're seeing. We are just a mind. So we're seeing the other and thinking, and we're falling into the trap of insanity. It's pure insanity. I would say that's how Dove got where he is. Listening to Ken, he just wipes the dream out. He's like, shh. But it has to go through layers. And that's where I see the deepening coming in. And I'm thinking, could you see, Lynn? Any of us in jail, this is the dream we made up. And we are in jail. We are literally in jail. We are listening to a monster. That's what it is. You know what? It's a nice monster. That's what's really bad about it, because it gives us pleasure and then there's all pain. So that's all. And yeah, Lynn, if you could send that, I just loved, today was great because listening to Ken, there's times I'll go to Keith and then just read my own stuff, of course, reading the course. But, when you really see, you're really not there. This is a voice talking to all of you. There's no form. It's all formlessness. And the formless made this, and it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. That's all.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Sharon. Karen, please go ahead.
Thank you, Sharon. I love what you just shared, and I agree with everything you said and what everyone shared. And I like when Ken said, we're being trained to think as a mind and not a body. And that's kind of what you were just sharing, Sharon, And he says, how do I measure my progress in the course? Ken says, when you recognize from an experiential point of view that the you that Jesus addresses in the course is the decision-making mind, not the you as a body person. So that helps me to recognize, when I think I'm upset because of something someone did or something that's going on outside, it's never that. It's because of the decision that I made. I made a decision to listen to that madman that we're talking about, these thoughts that I'm believing are true that aren't true. They're not the truth. So it's really a good practice for me to just remember that this is not the truth. I don't have to believe these thoughts. They're not real, and I can change my mind. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Karen. And thank you, everyone. Is anybody else got anything that they would like to share? I'm just so grateful for this sharing this evening, and just love to have you all, my little family here. And Regis, that's a beautiful picture, and I'm expecting that must be your daughter, your first wife and your daughter there in that photo. Sending them great love.
He might not be there. Is he there?
He popped in occasionally, so
Yeah, they're good. They're so beautiful, the three of them, aren't they?
yeah.
These images in my mind. You got to see yourself as a mind. That's when you really realize there's nothing here.
Exactly. All right. Okay.
Love is here.
Yep, that's all there is.
Yeah.
So thanks you guys so much. I love you all.
Thanks, everyone. Love
Have a
you.
beautiful night. Bye.
Tomorrow's my day off. I'm going to go over and visit my daughter and help her out with her plumbing issues. And if plumbing and broken dryer, that's what we're good for with the kids. Yeah, Regis, you ought to come
Regis, who was that picture of? The three people that you put on the screen.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Regis.
See, if you saw my picture on our son, you wouldn't recognize me because I didn't recognize you're beautiful and you still are. It's just a whole different, a different. When you look at your pictures, don't you think that you look different? I mean, I do.
I
It's
think
just
you
these
look
images,
exactly.
Oh my God, was that your first wife?
That was my daughter. That was not
Okay.
my first wife.
Okay.
That was her daughter, though.
Yep.
Well, they were all beautiful.
All right. All right. And Regis, you've been enjoying the thunder and lightning and the rain?
Yeah, I tell Tracy, did we bring that from Nashville?
No, that's Pueblo.
like-
In the spring, we get a whole rainy, it's hot in the day and then it rains and it's cool. You'll learn to love it. But then you also see people floating down the road in their cars. So it does get a lot of rain in the gutters. But yeah, it's early in this time of the year, and then later on in August and stuff, it'll rain again like this. Sometimes we'll get hail. So it's great though. It's not bad rain. It's kind of rain you could go running around outside naked in and have
Yeah,
That's
well,
legal in Colorado in your own yard, so
yeah.
don't judge me. All right.
Good night.
I love you guys. Good
Love you
night.
too.
Bye-bye.
Big hugs.
Big hug. Love you too, Brooklyn. She's a jailbird.
Yeah.
All right,
We
you
know
guys.
each other.
Bye-bye, y'all. Hey,